Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, November 9th, 2022 at 3 o'clock p.m., 3:01 specifically, but who's counting? And that means it is time for Women in Business. Today, we are going to talk about taking time for yourself. And this feels a little bit like self-care during the holidays that I did a couple weeks ago. And it kind of is, and it kind of isn't. So I'll explain that as we get more into the topic. But basically, self-care, mental health, doing things for you, which is something that a lot of women are not very good at. And I wanted to start with some reasons why women are not necessarily good at doing things for themselves, because that is part of the issue that we're talking about here. And one of the reasons that women are often not good at doing things for themselves is, as women, we are socialized to care about others. And that's one of those things where you don't even, it's kind of built into the culture a little bit. It's the cultural messages you get. It's the things that you're told when you're growing up. It's what you see the other women doing around you. Excuse me. My voice is always a thing. So you tend to pick up what you're told and the messages that you're given. And often what you're told and the messages that you get are that as a female, your job is to care for other people. Your job is to make sure that other people are getting what they need, are getting to do what they want, are being cared for, and your needs and wants and things that you enjoy doing are kind of way down the list as far as how that happens. So, and I think a lot of this is actually cultural. A lot of this is stuff that we don't necessarily even realize that we're being told. We don't realize that we're getting these messages because we see our moms doing it, we see our aunts doing it, we see our grandmothers doing it. We see movies and television shows where the mom is always self-sacrificing, and if she's a bad mom, or she's transgressing society if she goes off and does her own thing. And granted, that's maybe more back in the past than it is now, but I think there's still a level of, even now, there's a level of cultural pressure that gets put on women, especially if they have children. And if you don't have children, that's a whole different thing. But there's a level of pressure that happens where the assumption is that your time and your effort and your emotions and your motivation should be taking care of your kids and taking care of your husband and making sure your family's okay. And that whatever you might enjoy or want to do is something that should come far down the list. And I don't know why we put that burden on women. I don't really know where that came from. Maybe it's a historical thing because for a long time, the women's sphere was considered, home and hearth and kinder, basically, which is taking care of your house, looking after your husband, looking after your kids. And that was supposed to be all that a woman needed to be fulfilled and happy, is that. And I mean, I know that a lot of women who love their families, who are proud of their children, who want their husband to prosper and want him to be happy, and who still have hobbies or businesses or things that they love to do that they do for them. And they can manage all of those competing priorities. And I think that's something that we need to ask ourselves. Especially if we find that we're avoiding doing things for ourselves or doing things on our own. If we always feel that we have to have the kids with us or the husband with us, or it has to be about the family. It can't just be, I want to go to this seminar, or I want to go to this trade show, or I want to go, take guitar lessons or do yoga or learn to dance or whatever it is. And we kind of get this almost feeling of that's taboo, that we shouldn't do that. And I think, again, that comes from the messages that society gives us. I mean, if you think about movies and TV shows and books, when you have a woman who strikes out on her own, when you have a woman who is dedicated to doing her own thing, when you have a woman who insists on her own time, a lot of times that woman is kind of vilified or made to be the bad guy or treated as though she's selfish or uncaring or whatever it is. Um, I'll tell you, as someone who doesn't have children and never has wanted to have children, the rap that women like me get is that, oh, we're so selfish that we couldn't spend time having kids. And we were so selfish that we wanted all our time for ourselves. And I've been very honest about it when I talk about it because, yeah, honestly, that was part of it. That wasn't all of it, but I wanted to have a career. I wanted to focus on writing and I wanted to do things that I wanted to do. And I knew that I couldn't, there was a good possibility, let's say, that I couldn't do that and successfully parent a child like I would want to parent a child. And I mean, that's not the only reason I didn't have kids. There were a lot of reasons, but that was one. And what the feedback that I got back from people regarding that decision was, well, that's selfish. You should want to devote yourself to caring for kids and for caring for a family. And in my mind, I do have people that I take care of and look after and help. And to me, I am still doing that in my way. I'm just not doing it in the traditional way. But for a lot of people, that comes off as you're selfish or you're self-obsessed or you you're not willing to give to others. And I don't think that's what it is at all. In my opinion, honestly, my decision not to have kids was actually more self-sacrificing than having them would have been because I just was not sure that I would be good at being a parent. And I couldn't say 1,000% that I wanted a child. And I felt like if I couldn't say that with every fiber of my being, that this is what I want to do, then I shouldn't do it because kids know that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to have a child and then realize, oh, this wasn't what I wanted to do. And people told me, oh, that would never happen. You would, your kid would come and you would fall instantly in love and lada lada. And I was like, yeah, well, okay, that's entirely possible. But what if it doesn't happen? Then I have this irrevocable decision that I have to live with forever. And I just didn't feel comfortable making it. But that gets put down to being selfish and it gets put down to being self-obsessed or self-absorbed or narcissistic or whatever it is. And I don't necessarily think I'm any of those things, though maybe I'd be the last to know. But I think for a lot of women, we are socialized to take care of others. We are socialized to put our needs last. And that leads to us not taking the class we want to take or not pursuing the hobby we want to pursue or letting hobbies go that we really loved or not doing things like training to run a marathon. Or I have a friend who's doing that and it takes her some time. She runs a lot of miles, but her family's totally behind her and it fulfills her and it makes her happy and she's a better mother and wife and person because of it. And I think that's what's important. But we don't get that message. We do sometimes. I think it's becoming more of a message as time goes on. But for the most part, it's still you're supposed to be wife and mom and nowadays the message is you're supposed to be wife and mom and run a business or run a company or excel in the office and bring home the bacon and do everything, which is a whole nother can of worms that we'll have to touch some other time. But women really can't win. If you stay home and take care of your children, then there's problems with that. If you're out working, there's problems with that. If you try to take any time for yourself to do something that you care about or love to do, you may get flack for that or pushback or judgment or whatever it is. So there's a lot of burdens that society lays on women, and I don't think all of them are entirely fair, which is kind of sad. The next reason that sometimes women won't do things for themselves, and sorry, but you can hear the voice already. So sometimes water has got to be had, and it is not helping today, which is lovely. Um, a lot of women feel or think that they're being selfish if they do something for themselves. And I've heard this from a lot of women that I know, which is basically, oh, yeah, I used to play guitar, but it just took up too much time away from my family to take lessons. So I didn't. Or, yeah, I used to go to yoga every week and I really loved it, but gee, I just don't have time and my kids have so many classes. And so I stopped going. Or, I used to really love the girls' weekend away with my friends, but now that I have my business, I can't take the time away. And so we just haven't done it in a couple of years. And it's a bummer. And it's really, it's tough because we are often our harshest critics. And I like this comment from Cindy, and I'm going to put this up here. Whoops, if it will do it. When I headed off to college, I planned to be a coach. That changed after I got married and knew I would have children. I would not be able to totally dedicate being a coach with a family. And that's true. And Cindy has, if I remember correctly, 9 children. So that's a lot of children. But she made the decision that's right with her. And I mean, no judgment as far as that goes. But Cindy also, I know, because I know her and I've seen her at trade shows and I've seen her at other things. And I know she does a lot of things for her business and for herself and things she loves. So maybe that is a little more prevalent now that all her kids are grown up. But I have seen that she does that. So, and she just said, yes, she does have 9 kids. So that's a lot of children. So I'm sure when the kids were younger, there was a lot more time being devoted to raising them. And now that they're older, it doesn't need to happen as much. But I also think Cindy has a healthy awareness of taking care of herself. And she does things that she cares about and loves too. And I would hope that she did that when the kids were younger too. I mean, I get 9 kids is a lot of kids. But I think for a lot of women, they're scared to stake out time that's their time because they think they're being selfish, or they think that other people will think they're being selfish, or they think that they should be totally devoted. Every minute of their time should be devoted to their children and their husband and maintaining their family. Or alternatively, they think that every minute of their time should be devoted to running their business or thinking about their business or planning for their business or whatever it is. And so taking time to do something, and I should make air quotes here, frivolous, for lack of a better term, makes them think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm wasting time. I'm wasting time I could be doing, having my kids in another class. I'm wasting time that I could be using to find another customer for my business, whatever it is. And the thing about that really is, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, wrong-headed, I guess, which probably isn't the right way to say it, but I'm going to say it that way, is that if you are doing things that you like and that rejuvenate you and that kind of puff up your spirit a little bit and make you feel more like yourself and things that you enjoy doing and things that make you happy, you're going to be happier around your family and your kids. You're probably going to have more energy. You're going to feel more fulfilled. Your mood's probably going to be better. And all of that stuff will actually allow you to be a better business owner, a better mother, a better wife, a better friend, and feel better about yourself. And that's probably the least selfish you can be. But I think, again, because of the messages we get from society and because of things that people tell us, we get this sense of, if I spend any time on me, then I'm being selfish, then I'm taking time away from things that are more deserving of my time than I am, which is sad. Why are you less deserving of your own time than anybody else? And this quote from, or this comment from Cindy makes me laugh. I love to nap. I taught all my children to love to nap. That must be a parent thing, because I remember my mother teaching me about the wonderfulness of naps when I was a kid too. And I can remember when it was really hot in the summer, we didn't have air conditioning in the house where I grew up, and we'd go downstairs and sleep on air mattresses in the basement, because the basement was always very much cooler than the rest of the house. And the basement was our family room, and it was done up and stuff. So, but yeah, naps were a feature in my childhood too. And I wish I could nap now. I can't. I don't fall asleep well at all. And whenever I try to nap, it just doesn't work. I wish it would, but it doesn't. But again, a nap is a rejuvenating thing. A nap is something that maybe, half an hour, an hour in the middle of the day can be great and rev you up and get you going for the rest of the day. But you think it's selfish to spend the time on that, which is sad, because then you end up being tired and out of sorts when a 30-minute nap could set you up and make things right again. So don't worry about being selfish. Why is it selfish to want to spend some of your time on what you want? Why does everybody else get to do that but you? I think that's the question you need to ask yourself. And for the other people who might tell you you shouldn't do it, or it's not, it's not what women do, and we're supposed to be caretakers and we're supposed to be devoting our time to everybody else, tell them to keep their judgments to themselves. I mean, this idea of the woman as self-sacrificing and that's like the ideal, I think that's so old-fashioned, and I think that's so detrimental to women in general. We need to get rid of that. And one way we get rid of that is by taking the time for ourselves and doing the things that we love, being in that, amateur playhouse play, or taking those guitar lessons, or going to yoga once a week, or taking a bike ride, or whatever it is, something that you like doing. And do it whether your kids are little, do it whether your kids are older, do it whether you don't have kids at all, do it whether you're running a business, do it whether you have a really high power, high status job that takes a lot of hours. Give yourself the gift of time to do what you want to do. I guarantee you it will make your life better. And the last thing is kind of a twin to feeling selfish, which is dealing with guilt. People love to heap guilt on women. I don't understand why that is. We're not thin enough. We're not young enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not smart enough. We don't work hard enough. We don't take care of our kids enough. We're not providing enough enrichment. We're not loving our husbands enough, our spouses enough, whatever it is. There's a million things that you can read that will say you are not enough. And on top of that, we have to deal with the guilt of, hey, I'd like to be more, so I'm taking some time to do something I want to do. And then you get, well, you're taking time away from your family, you're taking time away from your business. Carolyn, Carolyn says, don't join a cult. They kind of frown on personal time. Don't think anybody was planning on it, but thanks for the tip. Dealing with guilt is one of those things where, again, a lot of us care what other people think of us. I think that's a human trait. We all want to be liked. We all want to be admired. We all want people to think we're doing well or the right thing or whatever it is. And you feel guilty when you think that you're trespassing against what the norms are or what people think you should be doing. Even if you think the people are idiots, which is really, I never have understood that. And I wish someone could explain that to me, why people that we otherwise wouldn't let walk us across the street will worry about their opinion. I don't understand that. I mean, there are people in my life that I respect and I think are are living amazing lives, and their opinions I do care about. People that I love, people that are friends, whatever it is. I care about that. But they're few and far between, honestly, these days. Most people, I don't really care. I mean, you can say what you want to say about how I live my life and what I do, and that's fine. Go for it. I mean, yeah, I want to be liked as much as anybody else does, but I've also learned that the life that suits me is not a life that most people would probably, I don't even know how I want to say it. The life that suits me is a life that probably most people wouldn't enjoy as much as I do. But it's a life that works for me. And it took me a really long time to get to a place where I was comfortable with saying that. I kept trying to stuff myself into this box that I thought I was supposed to be in, and I couldn't do it. And I was desperately unhappy. And I felt a lot of guilt because I didn't want to do the things that other people wanted to do. I don't get crazy over holidays. I don't love family reunions. I don't want to do that stuff. I never wanted to, like I said, never wanted to have kids. I don't particularly care about that. It's not what I wanted to do. I need a lot of alone time, which got me branded as antisocial for a number of years. I'm not antisocial. I like people just fine. I just like them on my terms, and I like them in small doses for most people. And a lot of that is because I tend to take in a lot of other people's emotions, and I also give out a lot of emotion when I'm around people because I was trained to be a caretaker. So I felt a lot of guilt for a lot of years when I said, you know what? I'd rather listen to music. I'd rather read a book. I'd rather write a story. I'd rather do other things than what you think I should do. And I think a lot of us feel that guilt when we say, I want to go play volleyball, or I want to go train to run a marathon, or I want to take a class at the university, or whatever it is. We have so many other demands on our time that it feels like we're doing something wrong and we should feel bad for it when we put our needs first, which is really sad. And like I said, I think we need to change that. That said, here's the next question. So if you're dealing with these feelings, if you're dealing with guilt, if you're dealing with feeling selfish, if you're fighting against your socialization to care about others, then how do you get past these things and be okay with doing stuff for you? Well, first we're going to look. This is a good point too. Carolyn says signs of an abusive relationship, mental or verbal, passing guilt on you every time you do something for your personal self, taking away things that give you joy. She is not wrong. That's a very good point. If you're in relationships where people are doing that to you, you may want to consider that that relationship may not be the best thing for you, and that maybe you need to get out of it or get help to figure out why you're in it. And maybe you need to look at whether your partner is someone who is willing to do the work to change or not. It's a good question, but that's a very valid point. Okay, so some ways to start taking time for yourself if you've traditionally had problems with that. One thing is pretty simple: calendars or alarms. And what this means is if you traditionally have had an issue with doing things for yourself, if you've let hobbies go that you liked, if you feel guilty when you take time away from your kids, schedule the time. And that means write on your calendar, 1 hour a week, I'm going to do something for me. And then when you get to that hour, set an alarm. And when the alarm goes off, your hour is done and you go back to whatever you think you should be doing. And here's what happens with this. As you start scheduling things, it becomes a routine. And as you start seeing the benefits of scheduling time for yourself or for your hobbies or your obsessions or whatever it is that you want to call it, or even just scheduling time where you're watching an episode of your favorite TV show, then you realize that there's a benefit to this, that it's worth it. And hopefully, eventually, you don't have to schedule it anymore. And the part with the alarms is also, it gives you a finite out. It gives you a dimensional piece of time that you're taking. I'm doing this until this alarm goes off. And so it doesn't feel as overwhelming, maybe. It doesn't feel as scary. It doesn't feel as selfish. I'm limiting it. I'm putting it between these boundaries. And in these boundaries, I'm going to do these things. And then when it's done, I'll go back to my other responsibilities. And I think in your mind, it ends up feeling like, okay, I'm not being as selfish. It's just, it gives you a perspective on the fact that in the many hours in your day, you're taking 1 or a half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is. So literally write it on your calendar, Google Calendar or a physical calendar, and say, on this date at this time, I'm going to take a guitar lesson. I am going to bake cookies. I am going to watch my favorite show, whatever it is, something that's just for you that you like doing. And set an alarm when you start, and when the alarm goes off, you're done. And then you go on with the rest of your day. Because I think part of the fear too is that once I get started and I'm doing the thing I love, I'm never going to stop. And that happens to some people. I can get like that with writing sometimes, where I could just go for, if I'm really on a streak, I could go for, hours. So I get that. Or when I was singing, I could sing for hours. I get that. So sometimes it's helpful to just say, okay, I'm going to do this bit now, and then when it's done, and move on. The next thing is just to understand, and oh, look, the sun came out, which I would have given you even odds it would not do. And of course it did, just because it likes to screw with me. Gotta love it. Anyway, taking time makes you better. And it really does, I think. There's mental health benefits to taking time. There's physical health benefits to taking time. There are a number of ways where you can benefit from taking the time to do something that you love. And okay, the sun is really seriously annoying now because I opened the blinds because I was sure that the sun would not come out. And of course it did. And now I feel like I'm getting blasted. Seriously, every time it gets me. Okay. Yep. I'm going to have to go shut the blinds. Sorry, guys. You're going to get a view of my empty chair for a second. And I'm really annoyed by this, but it's got to happen. And we'll just do some lights. So that was a new one. Sorry about that. Taking time makes you better. And I really do think that's true. And I think for a lot of us, it's what makes us mentally healthy, and it's what makes us physically healthy. And it can be physically healthy even if you're not doing yoga or running or whatever it is. It's about spending time on yourself. It's about doing what makes you happy and gives you endorphins and is fun for you. And I think that's what you really need to keep in mind when you're thinking about taking time for yourself. There are benefits for you, and those benefits will spill over to the other people in your life. You'll be happier, you'll be calmer, you'll be less stressed, all those things. So keep that in mind when you're coming up with reasons to justify taking time for yourself. It makes you a better person. Reduce the overwhelm in your life. And for a lot of people, there are so many competing things that are pulling on them, that are making them worried about what's happening in the world or in their home or with their kids or with their spouse or with their families. I mean, a lot of women who are my age or even younger can be caretakers for parents or other family members, can be caretaking children, can be looking after husbands, can be running businesses, and they're getting pulled in 59 different directions. And you end up with this kind of, you can't even fathom how you could take time for yourself because you don't have the time to take. It always seems like there's something that is pulling at you, that is trying to get you to do something, that is demanding some of your time. So, one way to be able to take more time for yourself is to reduce overwhelm. And I know the next question is going to be, okay, so how do I do that, Smarty? Well, ask for help is one way. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to. And maybe that help is somebody that you pay. Maybe that help is someone in your family. I know it used to floor me when I was young that there were kids out there that didn't have chores. I always thought that was just the weirdest thing ever because I knew how to do laundry from the time I was like 9. I started cooking at 10. Um, we helped clean the house. We had jobs. And yeah, we got compensated for doing that, but we had things to do. So it wasn't just up to my mother to clean the house. It wasn't just up to my mother to cook dinner because she had a full-time job and she had things she wanted to do too. So I think it comes down to part of reducing overwhelm is just admitting that, hey, I have too many things on my plate. I cannot do this all myself and I need help. And I don't think it's out of line to expect children to help. And yeah, I mean, age appropriate jobs. You're not going to go, here, 2-year-old, chop up this tomato. But, stuff that there are things that 2-year-olds or 3-year-old kids can learn to pick up toys. They can learn to keep things neat. They can figure this stuff out. I mean, granted, I realize that I'm speaking without a ton of experience here, but I've been around 2 and 3-year-olds. I know they comprehend language and instructions. So, and it's really not that hard to pick up your toys and put them in this bin. So, I think it becomes, again, another one of those things where socially and culturally we're kind of told we're supposed to do it all. We're supposed to handle it all. We're supposed to take care of it all. And that's just silly. I mean, I know when I got to college and I knew how to do stuff and I was around these other kids that didn't, that had never washed their clothes, that had no clue how to cook anything, that, had never, that called their parents for everything because they couldn't handle anything. That kind of shocked me. So I think there's actually some benefit to having a parent who is taking time for themselves, who is doing their own things, who is expecting that other people will pitch in and help. I really do. Now, that's me, and maybe other people will disagree with that, but I think part of the way to reduce overwhelm is to ask those around you to help you. And maybe not even ask, just say, these are the things that need to get done. Everybody needs to pick one. And assume that this is something that we are all in together and it's not just my job. Another way to reduce overwhelm is to pay somebody to do things. I get my groceries delivered. I'm perfectly capable of getting in the car and driving to get groceries. And some weeks I do. And some weeks I have a lot going on and it's just easier to get online at night and put it in order and have them bring it to me. And then it's done and I don't have to worry about it. And I used to feel really guilty about that. I mean, not during the pandemic because that was a whole different thing. But once the pandemic was over, I felt like I should still go to the grocery store. And then I thought, Why? Is there like a medal for going to the grocery store? If I can afford to do it and I don't mind tipping someone to bring me my groceries and I don't really love shopping and I'm comfortable with somebody else picking out my produce, then why not do it? And if you're a caretaker for an elderly parent or something, why not hire someone to come in a couple hours a week? Or, or hire someone to do, clean your house, or hire someone to, or do a meal delivery service or whatever it is. There's no law that says that you have to do everything yourself. And there's no law that says that it's wrong if you don't. But I think a lot of people feel that way. So just don't do it. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, take the steps to not feel overwhelmed, because it will help you in the long run and it will actually free up time for you. The sun is just making me insane. It will not go away. I don't know why. Oh, all right. So the next topic, hobbies and goals. And hobbies and goals are basically, what do you want to take time to do? What did you give up that you used to love? Did you used to swim? Did you used to ski? Did you used to bike? Did you sing? Did you like amateur acting? Did you like making ships and bottles? Did you like rock hunting? Did you like rock climbing? Whatever it is, what is it that you really enjoy doing that you're not doing anymore? Because like I said, I think that's one of the things that I hear most often from women is, I used to do X thing and now I just don't have time and I really miss it. And I think that's sad because we don't put the same expectations on men. With men, it's like, oh, you should go golfing. You worked really hard this week. Or, oh, you should go deer hunting. Or you should go have a weekend with the boys because you worked really hard. You don't really get the same attitude when it comes to women. And I think that's culturally a double standard. And I don't think that it's fair. So if there was something that you really loved doing, if you geeked out about Marvel movies and you want to just sit and watch Marvel movies for a weekend or whatever it is, then you should do that, because that's the stuff that's going to benefit you. That's the stuff that's going to make you a more well-rounded person. That's the stuff that's going to make you happier and less stressed and probably more interesting. And then the other half of it is setting goals for taking time for yourself. And I think in some ways, maybe setting goals for yourself is a way to make spending time on yourself feel a little less selfish for some people, be a little less of a guilt-causing thing. If you set a goal that I want to learn a new language, or I want to get in shape, or I want to run a 5K, or I want to go, I want to learn how to do downward dog. Downward dog's not a hard pose, but it was the only one I could think of. Or whatever it is, if you set a goal to do something that will enrich your life and maybe benefit you, or it could be, I want to take a class, or I want to go to this seminar to learn about this new business opportunity, or I want to go to this trade show, or whatever it is. And again, it's something where you're taking time to do something for you, but there's also benefits to it that could potentially benefit you in the long term. So I think you need to be aware that well-rounded people have both hobbies and goals. Well-rounded people have things that they do just because they like to do them. And not everything has to be about furthering your career or taking care of your family or, whatever it is. Sometimes things can just be done because they're fun and you like them and they rejuvenate you. Or they can be done just because they're relaxing and they're restful and you feel less stressed when you do them. All those things. So definitely think back to the hobbies that you used to love that maybe you don't do anymore. And definitely look at goals you could set that would potentially be beneficial and also be rejuvenating for you. That's part of taking time for yourself. And finally, better physical and mental health. And this, I think, goes without saying, but for a lot of people, maybe not. I don't know. And that is that if you are taking time for yourself, if you are doing things you love, if you are doing things that rejuvenate you and make you happy and relieve your stress, you're going to be both mentally and physically more healthy. And if you don't get why that doesn't benefit the other areas of your life, let me give you a synopsis. If you're more physically healthy, there's less doctor visits, there's less pain, you're able to do more, you can perhaps work longer, you'll probably sleep better, all those sorts of things. For your mental health, if you're doing something that keeps your brain active, if you're doing something that makes you happy, that gives you joy, that helps you combat a lot of common mental health issues like anxiety, like depression. I mean, obviously, any, bipolar or schizophrenia or any of that stuff, that's going to take a little more work, but it can help raise your level of mental health overall. And don't underestimate what even a small bump in your mental health can do for you. And let's keep in mind that in order to meet all the responsibilities that most women have to meet, you have to be physically and mentally healthy and capable. You can't be, if you're always hurting, you can't lift your kid, you can't carry groceries, you can't do the things you need to do. If mentally you're always battling anxiety or you're battling depression, then it's hard to run your business. It's hard to deal with customers. It's hard to keep a positive attitude. It's hard to look forward with excitement and plan for your future if you're feeling sad and blue all the time. So taking time for yourself can reinforce these two pillars of basically what you need for a good life. You need to be physically healthy and you need to be mentally healthy. And I think a lot of women neglect both their physical and their mental health because they, like I said, they feel like it's selfish or they feel guilty about it, or it's always something that's going to happen down the road. I'll make a doctor appointment next month. I'll get my mammogram next month. I'll get my colonoscopy next month. I'll go see a therapist next month. And keep in mind that working out and seeking therapy can be ways of taking time for yourself too, and beneficial ways. And there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist if you need to see a therapist. There is nothing wrong with taking time to go to the gym. It's not about being vain. It's not about being selfish or obsessed with your looks or whatever it is. It's about keeping yourself physically healthy so you can do the things you need to do. If there was one thing I could change about exercise and going to the gym, I would take the emphasis off. And this may be a show at some point. I would take the emphasis off. It's about how I look and it's about how small I can get, and put it on, it's about being healthy. I'm probably the healthiest I've ever been in my life. Now, I'm also considerably smaller than I have been in the past, but I'm still not small, but I'm healthy. Everything's doing what it's supposed to do. My numbers are good. So there's a benefit to the fact that I exercise every day. There's a benefit to the journaling that I do. There's a benefit to all these things, and there'll be a benefit for you as well. So get over feeling selfish for wanting to take time for your physical or mental health, and get over thinking that it's about being small or you need to look a certain way or whatever it is. It's about being the healthiest person you can be. That's what matters. And that, my friends, since my voice is starting to go and the sun is making me insane, I am going to say that's it for today. Thank you to everybody who came and listened. I hope you got something out of this. I felt like it was a little incoherent today because the sun got in my way and my voice is bugging me. But, hopefully you got something out of it, and thank you all for listening, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.